how's it going?
It's going.
And thank you so much for hopping in. I saw your recent post, about learning digital marketing and the certification in Coursera. I was just wondering what your key takeaways were from that and why you feel like that is a must in the year of 2025.
Oh, that's a really good question. But business is really about marketing and selling. A lot of companies think, okay, I have this great product and people will know that. That's a really good way to have their company fall. Really, it's how you communicate with your customer, how you really help that customer realize the value of what you have to offer. As an entrepreneur, that is such a critical thing. And really this came as a result of me working with a lot of marketers. All right.
Right.
And salespeople and things not working out with them. I've worked a lot of different teams, worked with individuals, agencies, you name it. I've spent, hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to get it right. But in reality, I didn't understand what was good. I didn't really know anything about marketing because I'm a technical guy, right? I see the world through the eyes of a technologist. Because I limited myself in that way, it became really hard for me to work with the marketing team because I didn't know what they were talking about. I didn't understand the metrics they were following. They would say things, I would just sit in the row and just listen.
Cool.
By really doing that and understanding the language they spoke and the art and science of marketing, I was really able to take that and leverage it to really help me and understanding how I need to position myself to customers and clients.
I want to learn a little bit more about your background in corporate and then the industry trends that you're currently seeing as a CEO and founder of your
Right.
own business in the tech industry. Then we'll discuss, what current challenges we're seeing with these new technologies.
I found my way into Deloitte through a training program, and they hired me because I got certified in SAP S/4HANA for financial accounting. With Deloitte, they don't hire you because you're really good at one thing. They hire you because you have the aptitude to be great at a lot of things, right? They're very
Mhm.
selective in how they pick people. I spent about 3 years in Deloitte doing a lot of technical project management, but also strategy and analytics and a couple other areas. I spent about 3 years working mostly government projects, a couple of different financial projects, healthcare. I was really adding a lot of value, and I saw that, and that was really rewarding for me. But I had this itch. I had that entrepreneurial bug that bit me, and it was like, hey, you're really good at this, and you should try to see who you can help, because the one challenge when it comes to consulting in a corporate environment is you are very bound to how the organization wants you to do things. And I ultimately decided to jump over to Lockheed Martin, and I was a digital transformation IT systems engineer, right? And I was there and I was helping to work with the high performance computing team, doing a really amazing stuff to help out classified programs and building essentially supercomputers and building classified ITs for missile fire controls, first PMO, and helping out with their ITSM practice, our IT service management practices. I was loving it, but something really strange happened one day. I always had that bug just biting at me. I was trying to figure out how to build this business, and I was having brunch one Sunday, and this girl sits next to me, a couple seats away from me, and I could see she was stressing out about something. And I asked her how her day was going. Very visibly, it was going bad, but at the start of a conversation, she started telling me about all her business challenges she was having. I got to know her a little bit, and she told me about her business, and I was trying to understand the challenges. And she ultimately became my first client. I had to change my approach, and it took me a while to really master this. But what I found is small businesses work better with small businesses. Large companies work better with large companies.
That is such a key insight. I agree.
A lot of people, a lot of consultants like to aim up to a much bigger client, but that creates a couple problems. Larger clients have much more complex needs where you need an actual team that can come in and facilitate the solution. But there's a lot of small businesses out there where we see people reaching out for a product or a service, and that's great. But it's also they're trying to apply these big firm solutions to a small company. The small company doesn't need it.
What did you ended up doing to help this person at brunch,
Oh, first we had to understand her business. It grew to the point where she didn't really know what was going on, which is pretty common. Even large corporations have a lot of darker areas where they really can't, they don't have visibility in how the company works. This typically happens when you outsource a lot, or you have all these processes, or you don't really document very well of
Mm.
what you actually have. So the first thing we actually did is helped her to get real visibility on what her business looked like. I mapped out every single process. I used the TOGAF's the Open Group Architectural Framework, ADM, Architectural Design Method, to really map out her business from business architecture to data architecture to application architecture to technology architecture. A lot of it was very brick and mortar. All these layers exist. So you really was trying to understand how she was organizing herself. You need to have alignment on what the challenges are and what the solution is going to look like before you start moving forward. And that, yes, that will change over time as you learn more. But without a starting point like that, you're going different directions already. So we both need to understand how our business worked. And then we were able to start fixing like the small processes, especially the ones that, were very revenue intensive. After I worked with her for a few months, I started taking other clients. We ended up subcontracting under a very large financial consulting firm for a little bit on a really large financial client. That was my first real step into that world. I ended up leaving during all this time. I ended up leaving
Wow.
Lockheed Martin, and it was still is an interesting ride. A lot of ups and downs and a lot of fluctuations in markets. But
Yeah.
a lot of what's taught me too, it's learning how to fail smartly. I think a lot of new business owners give up because this is one of the hardest lessons you learn as an entrepreneur. Things are going to go wrong. You have no control over it. It's just going to happen. The only thing that matters is what you do about it.
Mhm.
Started teaching me a lot about strategy and how I approach clients.
So how do you approach clients currently and find out about, what their needs are?
A lot of my clientele right now is government. I work with federal government, I work with state level and a few county and local government. The thing I really love about the most working with different government agencies, as a taxpayer, I like to ensure that my tax dollars are going towards things that matter. Where it comes to efficiency and all this money that people are spending is not being wasted. Because the government is very bureaucratic. They know that. There's no secret there. So ensuring there's some level of efficiency and accountability in how these systems work, where it's not only are they getting a good price on it, but the stakeholder in the end, the American citizen, is getting a better benefit. I think the wrong way to approach government contracting is to say, I'm just going to go bid on this stuff and make money. Like, you're actually trying to help out your country.
Yeah, that's really powerful. You're helping the government run more efficiently, but at the same time, you're helping the American citizen.
Yeah, a person who you may feel marginalized, they're a little person, they still are a benefactor of what I do. But we also work with B2B clients, and a lot of what we do is through, obviously networking, talking to people, getting on people's radar in our marketing. A trend I've noticed with the smaller companies, right? So what I was saying before about you can't apply big company solutions to small companies. Because one, the need doesn't exist yet. It will eventually, but it's a really powerful thing. And a lot of consultants I see are moving to more of the MSP model, managed service provider, where they have managed IT services, managed cybersecurity, managed whatever. Typically, MSP is really thought of as a IT way, but you can really apply to a lot of different things, even like managed HR services. Having that ability to work with small companies where they're leveraging a much larger capability for them, because it still gives them the power of a larger company in that area at a much reduced cost. But because there's so many clients in it, and a lot of this, if you're leveraging the digital environment, you can stretch this out and really provide value to a much larger group of people. The MSP model is a lot cheaper, and there's a lot of really good tools out there that help. Having the ability to really bring that to them and then have technicians or whoever available to support clients. You're not selling them a piece of tech. What you're really doing is selling them that you're going to make their problem your problems. There's a lot of what a lot of consultants do, and I think it's really not the smartest approach. They focus so much on providing capability and solution without understanding the problem. The first step in any journey is the agreement of terms. You really do need to understand the problem, have the client understand the problem for what it is. Because when it comes to decision making, and this happens at all levels of business, there is always a discovery period where they're trying to understand things better, and then they make a move based on what they understand. If you're part of that journey early on and be like, hey, like, I know you're trying to do this, or it looks like you're trying to do this. This is generally how much it's going to cost if you want to do all that. There's an easier way. Let me worry about it, right? And for a very fair fee of, maybe depending on what the service is, from like a couple hundred to like a couple thousand, depending on the size of the company, the complexity of the work, we'll just take care of it for you. You need IT infrastructure, we can provide that. You don't need to buy servers. You don't need to buy all these computers. You don't need to buy all this stuff. You get maybe one PC. You have a cloud environment, which is going to cost you way less. You store everything there. You have somebody who can monitor it for you, and then you don't have to think about it. You can focus on getting better at marketing. You can focus better at understanding your client needs. Let the consultant that has the MSP capability really help you. You know, the most valuable resource we have in the world is time. And the more
Hmm.
time you spend doing things, the less valuable everything becomes, right? You
Yes,
get a
definitely.
sort of a mental atrophy just trying to be every place at once, and it doesn't work. You can't scale that way.
I like how you pretty much tell them like, hey, you could do all of this and achieve the same result, but instead of spending a tremendous amount of money with this solution that is customized for your business plan and stage, you can get the same result. And that's something that you, as a IT consultant, can provide to smaller businesses, not just to big government contracts out there.
It does help a lot of these companies grow because the challenge here is if you're chasing money as a consultant, you're never going to find it. A lot of these companies have been burned. That's a lesson I really had to learn when it came to selling, right? It's, you're selling you're selling the problem, right? When they understand what's going on, then they're much more likely to say yes to a solution. You cannot be overly technical with non-technical people because they will
Yeah.
shut down.
You work in defense sector. How do you make sure that you're protecting the data flow?
Data security is always a really big challenge when it comes to government, right? A lot of the government wanted to move to cloud, right? So I have like cloud. One of the most underlooked areas when it comes to data security is supply chain security. We only work with vendors where they're US based headquarters. It's not as difficult as many people think for an agent or an operative overseas to install something on a device before it's shipped here. So having things that are built here first matters. From the cybersecurity front, there's a lot of different tools that can check everything from the simple antivirus to network monitoring. And also patch management, having scheduled times to run patches on these devices to make sure they are, and having reoccurring pen tests and vulnerability scans, right? Where you're actually seeing like, hey, has anything changed, right? Because you have a baseline how you operate and how you're supposed to operate based on the governance you establish and then the standards. It's defense in depth. You want to be able to layer your security on top of one another. So there are redundancies in place because when it comes to high security projects, you need to actually have a mindset of security going in there. It needs to be baked into your processes.
And is that something that you offer as a service for some firms?
We are very security focused from the get-go, even if it's not explicit. A lot of it too, it's not just what you do with the hardware, because in reality, the greatest threat to any organization, it's not the technology, it's not who's outside, it's the employee. People make mistakes. People get rushed, people miss things. So teaching really good cybersecurity skills and real cybersecurity training is important, right? There's people using AI to, complete work, but all that information is then pushed out into the world. So you can push proprietary things into an open environment. A good way to counter that, or is to at least, give, a more company focused tool created by the company so they don't have data exfiltration.
You published an article not too long ago talking about how 43% of the code that is written today is being written using AI. But like you
Yep.
mentioned, it could easily go out there into the world. On top of that, it's not fully built in such a way that it's preventing vulnerabilities. Auditors today are facing big challenges inspecting this code and finding that, yeah, even though it works, it's not 100% reliable when it comes to security and the compliance that they have to follow.
If really you wanted to secure an organization, it starts with the people. When you focus on people first, when you focus on your employees first, when you focus on your customers first, understanding their needs and teaching them like how they need to operate or interact with the systems to get value matters a lot, because that way you can design processes to fit them. Because everybody here is a stakeholder, but when you have people who understand things better, the processes follow too. And then once the processes follow, you can actually have technology follow a good process. And that's a really big challenge. And this is why the failure rate of digital transformation is so high, right? I think the number a lot of consultants love to tout is 70%, but in reality, a lot of us are starting to see it's higher. Nobody wants to do anything malicious. There's plenty of people who don't like their jobs, but nobody wants to really hurt their company. Definitely don't want to break any laws. You have to really take that people first approach to digital transformation, because a digitally literate culture, somebody who's not afraid of technology, or at least comfortable around it enough where they can really learn, those are the people and organizations that thrive in the digital age.
Yeah. So what is your primary focus, in helping? What do you mean by digital transformation?
Digital transformation is the alignment of people, process, and technology for the digital age. A very large tech component to it. But if I were to break it down to percentages, it would be 50% people, 30% process, 20% technology.
Yeah.
Right. It's when you have a culture that is decentralized. And when I say the digital age too, I mean, everything is very agile and not just the framework, but business agility matters. The market moves very fast. Things are changing. Corporations and countries are connected all over the world. People are hyper aware of things where a tweet could change how a company functions. It's having the ability to have awareness, to be able to pivot, have the culture that allows for change. This is a really challenging one too, especially for high risk averse organizations like finance, healthcare, government, defense. And there's plenty of times I've met people where something changes and they think their job is threatened. And it's like, well, are these skills transferable? And a lot of organizations struggle with that as well, where they would like to make a change and they want to do it really quickly. Real change doesn't happen all at once. It happens in increments. So you have to slowly control the change. In reality, in the digital age, though you may have a plan for what the future will look like in 5 years, it's already going to look totally different from what you expected in 6 months. So
Right.
you have to work in smaller increments and have the higher level plan as kind of a North Star, that guiding light to get you there, but also realize that, hey, it's likely going to change by eliminating the risk early on, right? Looking for the unknowns and trying to fix it, but also be aware like, hey, we could lose this. That's why I love the idea of things like cloud and leveraging AI, because it does add that scalability as long as you know how to do it correctly.
So when it comes to AI, how has AI transformed your business? How has it helped you scale it?
I've had a love-hate relationship with AI.
Don't we all?
Right. I love what AI has the potential to do. I think for a lot of us too, it's learning what AI can't do or can't do very well. A big challenge that I had to really overcome with AI was understanding how to prompt engineer effectively. When you and I, or when anyone talks, we can speak through context, right? I assume you know certain things. You assume I know certain things. I can say a very short phrase, and through that context, I assume you're going to know what I mean. So with AI, it doesn't, well, with LLMs, it doesn't have that. But the trick is narrowing your response through narrowing your, or, I'm sorry, narrowing the prompts. Through narrowing the prompt, you can actually get a much clearer understanding, or you give it a much clearer understanding of what you're asking for. But there's also, robotic process automation, and we use that very heavily in the company. I'm a big believer that automation is one of the most effective ways to scale a company. But I said, process then technology. So you need to have a process identified first and then automate it. And that's why I like tools like, Zapier. Yeah, even at Deloitte, I was using like Blue Prism and AnyConnect.
Hmm.
And it's really where I got my start with RPA. Using things like that is really powerful, right? Because you can use it's really intelligent automation at that point, where you can
Yeah.
leverage these different tools to really handle the things that you can't, the tedious things, because you hire very smart people. You want them to do very smart people things. You don't want them to waste their time doing very simple tasks that a machine could easily do for them. You're getting your money's worth out of people at this point.
How do you define automation being different from AI?
I'll give you an example of generative AI, like AI, and just standard like automation. AIs typically work better for more generalized problems when it's given some sort of context to work inside of. So if I can ask ChatGPT anything, it will give me a response, right? That's with generative AI, right? It is good for prompting and generating text and some sort of information back. Like it's basically a search engine on steroids at this point, right? The big distinction here, generative AI is not execution based. It is not going to wait for a trigger event to happen and then know to run, because it doesn't know. It's waiting for a prompt. The distinction between agentic AI and regular automation is very narrow to something. You cannot easily adopt automation to a new process. You have to rebuild the automation. Versus with agentic AI, it's not nearly as difficult. It typically requires a couple different connections in a few different directions. So it's much easier. And typically when it comes to agentic AI, there's a lot of very low code, no code solutions out there. So it's much easier to adopt than standard, writing a script. The agentic AI doesn't necessarily act as a person. Generally when it comes to standard automation, like you're very locked in to that existing process.
Right. So, do you currently leverage more automation or AI?
That's a hard question. If I have a process that typically is more cognitively intensive, I would prefer to have agentic AI help, especially after I, got the process figured out and we can really have that AI take over. But if you have this general, I don't understand this or I need help writing it, then yeah, generative AI is a great tool.
Where do you want to see your company like heading in the next 6 months with all of these new technologies transforming?
I would like to get us to the point where start working on really becoming a leader in the space. We hire a lot of very smart people. We work with a lot of very talented clients. We're constantly getting better. The reality is, it's though in business terms people are seen as competitors, they're really partners because what we do impacts others and what others do impacts us. So trying to be the voice of reason in the room where people want to listen and actually helping to guide the policies that shape how the future is going to go. And that's where I think we are headed right now. The United States, I think we are a very innovative culture, in the eyes, in our eyes and in the eyes of the world. And we lead the charge when it comes to technology. We lead the charge when it comes to industry. We lead in a lot of different industries. Because of that, it's very easy for us to innovate beyond our ability to control it. And I don't mean necessarily control as in a bad way. We need to put regulations and everything. We need to be deliberate in how we do these things, right? We only have we only have so much time to get it right. And the longer we leave things unchecked and misunderstood, the greater confusion becomes and the less value we're going to be able to achieve. There's that fear of AI taking jobs. And could AI take jobs? Even autonomous systems, those developed a lot too. Arizona, California, and Texas, we have Waymos, your self-driving cars. That's a very cool concept that also hurts a lot of people who do rideshare, where they need a second source of income to support their families and things like that. I've seen robotic chefs. I've seen robotic fry flippers. We're innovating so quickly, but it's a good term for you, creative destruction, where you have innovation moving so quickly, it decimates industries. This has been true through all of human history, from the strong carriage to like the engine to it changes not just one industry, but all industries. So really getting our voice out there to help guide the change in a practical way that is beneficial and more beneficial and detrimental to society, to humanity. Maybe on a personal level, maybe to make sure not that I have them yet, but make sure my kids and grandkids can grow up in a better world.
Beautiful.
And that's the thing, is what we do today impacts tomorrow. I mean, by approaching this world with that mindset, like you really do understand, like we have to be bold, be smart.
Right. And so now let's talk about Transform 42. Positioning your company as an industry voice, how do you see it evolving?
I think it will really expand a lot of our client base as an industry leader, which will also position us to help a lot more companies, a lot more people. Because at the end of the day, we are all citizens of something, right? We are all, have families, whether you're married and have kids, or you have that boyfriend or girlfriend, or you have your parents. There's people in our lives that matter. And I think by helping people, by helping companies that employ people, we're helping people spend more time with their families. And I would love for, as we become the voice or one of the more reasonable voices in the room, I would like companies to see that and then be like, hey, I want to talk to these guys. They're honest, they care. Because really, if you do business with good people, you get good results.
What advice would you give to someone that is getting started?
1 minute of action always outweighs 1 hour of research. You can study stuff all day, but by actually doing something, you're going to learn a lot more. Or be more knowledgeable of things. There's something of value usually created at the end, whether it's negative or positive value, depends. But the real trick, and this is a rule I have with my team when we're innovating, it's called the 80% rule. Just get to 80% and deploy it. Because what's really going to matter, it's not what you build, but how it interacts with the world around it. No system is ever perfect. And no one should ever expect a system to be perfect, because this is very unrealistic. There are so many things that the world has gotten so complex that no matter what we do, things will go wrong. To be honest, people's ego get in the way because nobody wants to be embarrassed. Nobody wants to get yelled at by a client. Unfortunately, it happens. And when you get comfortable with the idea that will happen and you embrace things going wrong, you become unstoppable, because things do go wrong. They always go wrong. It's what you do about it that matters. The one thing I've learned about like working with clients over the years, when something goes wrong, they don't see it as necessarily a problem. They see it as a cost. It's how much is this going to cost me to fix? How much money did I lose? How much do I
Interesting.
need to spend? You say, hey, it's taken care of. It's good. We've already got it. Until it gets to the point where you say, I need your help. This is something unforeseen. I've had engagements where that happens too. Usually we find out there's something on the other side of the business that's preventing us from working. And this usually happens due to a lack of communication. You have to really understand how to manage expectations because they don't know what you know. And though it may seem small to you, it may be huge to them.
That makes a lot of sense. If you could solve one major challenge today for your business, what would that actually be? What are you putting most of your focus on right now?
We're always innovating. I think a lot of our R&D time right now is going towards agentic AI. Is really building out tools to help a lot of these smaller businesses scale more effectively. We're trying to find ways to build these tools out or these agents out that are easy to implement, where you don't need to know how to code or do anything crazy. It's just let's map it out to the process. We can give it to customers. So our customers now have not just more capital to spend, but more time to spend on the things they love. That's what a lot of our focus is going on today. It's we would like to become a leader in that space as well.
That's super powerful.
The challenge in working with customers, and this really goes out to really anyone trying to get into consulting, don't try to sell a solution to somebody because they don't understand it. So sell the problem to somebody. You need to have that as a starting point of why you're even having that conversation. When you can solve the problem, everything else becomes very easy. Because once they understand what's actually going on, they feel a lot more confident in your ability to solve it for them.
I would love to really learn how you go about prospecting and knowing what their problem is before even talking to them, so that then when you talk to them,
Yeah.
you actually know what to present to them.
So that's the wonderful thing about government contracting too. There's always a contracting officer you can email. They always have a point of contact in one way or another. You can reach out to somebody like, hey, I'm going to go bid on this. I had some questions. Do you mind if I send them to you? And they will find out for you, which is great. That and the fact that they're willing to work with you to get the best solution is really a testament that the government does want to be more efficient and wants to improve. Government needs industry to help.
And in the commercial sector, like how would you go about doing that?
On the commercial side, especially with larger companies, a lot of them will keep their problems very close to their chest. If you're a consultant working with smaller businesses, something I would really recommend trying is Facebook. There are plenty of small business groups where people are venting, where people are asking for advice. You can ask them, be like, hey man, like what's going on with this? And really try to understand their problem and say, hey, let me help you. I want to understand what you're going through. And I want to see if I can provide a solution.
That's amazing. Thank you for that advice. And thank you for your time today, Joe. It's been truly insightful.